When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first, you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Kindness is its own strength, and leaders who don't show kindness aren't showing strength at all. I'm no longer interested in, transactional relationships, performative values that aren't real, that are just one way in front of the curtain and completely different behind it. I'm not interested in leadership without humanity, and I'm certainly not interested in words without action.
Welcome to the A World of Difference podcast. I'm Lori Adams Brown, and this is a podcast for those who are different and want to make a difference.
Hi, difference makers. I want us to take a quiet pause at this year end, and I'm going to spend some time reflecting on this past year and the next couple of episodes. And I want to just first of all acknowledge what an incredible year it has been together. We've had some guests that have given us some mic drop moments, some moments where it challenged me and my own thinking. I've heard from many of you where different guests really resonated with you and things that they shared. As we sort of pause in this season at the end of the year, I want us to take a minute to slow down, to just breathe and reflect. If your December has been like many workplaces where a lot of things happen in the December crunch, getting ready for many people to take time off for the holidays, it can feel a little frantic this time of year with all the holiday parties and events and closing out budgets. And I really want to frame this episode as a personal reflection, as many of us have had these jobs that are big and impactful where we're performing at certain high levels all the time. And it's good for us to just take time as a community who leads many of you in different ways around the world and who care very deeply to just reflect and look back. So over this year, it has taught me so much. It stretched many of us, personally, professionally, globally. We've learned lessons together here from our guests around resilience, about courage, how to be more clear as leaders. Uncertainty has been a part of many of our worlds as we've come together, and we've seen shifts in the AI revolution that is transforming how all of us work. We've seen geopolitical shifts, macroeconomic changes. We've seen in the US, we've had very difficult things that we've navigated in even just the workplaces, from ICE raids to tariffs to layoffs here in Silicon Valley, and mixed with the macroeconomic issues of how expensive things have gotten. When we look at places around the world like Ukraine, still devastated by war, Venezuela bracing itself for a possible imminent war with here in the United States. And yet at the same time, we were able to celebrate Maria Corina Machado getting the Nobel Peace Prize. And although missing her ceremony just recently and having a chance to meet her children and hug them after 2 years, getting to still see her finally make it. And many moments that whatever your opinions are on what's happening there, just to celebrate this woman who has fought so hard for a country that I and many of you listening deeply, deeply love. It's a place that formed me. And as I enter Christmas time, I'm always reminded of the beautiful Christmases I spent in my childhood in Venezuela, places where I learned aguinaldos, and I learned that when you put out your nativity scene, that you have the three kings waiting off to the side, and they finally make it to the Christmas nativity set on January 6th, which is Three Kings Day. These are things I still do in my home, traditions that I keep with me. Of course, I love the hallacas that are, if you've never tried them, please go find a Venezuelan near you and ask them about them, or Google it, or find a Venezuelan restaurant that might be making it as a specialty this time of year for the holidays. They're not They're not easy to make, but they're delicious. And if you're not a fan of raisins, just make sure you know that they're in there. I love them. But so much has happened around the world this year, and we've walked through a lot of it together. People have changed jobs. Jobs come and go. Titles come and go. Seasons change. But who you are as a leader and your character can stay steady through those times. We've seen a lot of layoffs affect women here largely. We've seen a lot of AI as it's being adopted into companies. We've seen that being used to replace roles that are largely ones that women do. We've seen women be ousted from their jobs for having an opinion or for speaking up or asking a question or having an opinion in or outside of work. We've seen the US government diminish roles such as the nursing profession and say it's not a professional role anymore, roles that are largely, women centric. And so as we look about in ways that we can learn from each other and bring different voices around the table, different perspectives around the table, we've certainly learned from very courageous, authentic leaders who've brought their perspectives in as guests on the show this year. I would say who we are as leaders, if we know our values and if we keep those as our litmus test, then those last way longer than any role or organization. And how we treat our direct reports, it really matters. To me, if I'm around a leader and I see them trashing their direct reports, especially if I see them treating them like garbage and blaming them for their own mistakes or expecting their direct reports to take the blame for the leader's mistake, all of these are huge red flags for me. Who you are as a leader means taking responsibility for how you communicate. Have you been clear? Have you not? Have you given people space to question you or push back? And taking the blame for your own mistakes and learning them, and not expecting perfection from yourself or anyone else, but being human-centered. It's okay to make mistakes and to create that psychological safety to push back and to learn from mistakes. How we listen matters. And that listening means listening to the hard things that people might tell us about ourselves as leaders in ways that we may not have communicated well, or tried to plan too many things in a very grandiose type of way that was too much, that the workload was absolutely too much, or not giving people clear roles and responsibilities as we invited them into something and then piling on extra work to the point that they're overloaded and then blaming them when they're failing. That kind of what is often a sabotaging is unacceptable to me as a leader. When I see that happening, that is a red flag. And then I begin to want to distance myself from that kind of a leader. But here we want to talk about and bring on leaders who are living out their values in a congruent way, that who they are is who they are. And there's not some show they're putting on where things behind the curtain are completely different. And that means speaking up when something isn't right. So when we see something, we say something, and it doesn't have to be loud and in the press. It can just be, warning the people that might be hurt by that person. Or it could be as simple as, finding an escape plan from that situation and then speaking from the outside. But when we see something that's not right, that's hurting others, some type of bullying situation in a workplace, could be a nonprofit where you're volunteering, could be you sit on a board and you've noticed that the CEO is behaving that way and has done that to many others, and then beginning to distance yourself from that. All of these are ways that we lead, where we don't become a part of something and stay a part of something that is hurting and harming others. And leadership means having the courage to step away from something that's just not right. So choosing our values over our convenience, it really matters in times like this, where we're seeing a lot of capitulation here in the United States, where we're seeing, certain cultural values become very extreme, such as a leader makes a decision, asks no one, and people are supposed to just get in line and not question. That is very dangerous, especially at certain levels of leadership, such as over an entire corporation or over an entire government. These checks and balances should exist not only in government, but in our society and in our corporations when many people's lives and livelihoods are on the line. And, walking away when alignment is gone, that's not failure. That's integrity. That's being who you say you are, keeping your name associated with something that you can feel good about and proud of. Once again, we don't expect perfection, but when there are serious series of values misalignments that have happened again and again, then leaders have to make hard decisions. And this has been a year where I've had to make a couple of hard decisions like that. It's never easy. It's never fun. But I just have always practiced listening to understand those around me, getting different perspectives. And as I know that I'm self-aware enough to know that I don't know everything, no one does. You could be a person with a very high IQ, Einstein, or anybody who has tested out on an IQ score to be very high, and you still don't know everything. You still need people in your life to speak into your life and to say, hey, have you thought about it from this angle? Or to even challenge you and say, maybe that exit plan you have needs to happen a little bit sooner for various reasons. Taking all of that information in, sitting with it for yourself for 24 hours or more, maybe journaling, maybe going, I like to go to the beach. I was there earlier this week and sat by the beach in Santa Cruz and just took some time to reflect as the ocean waves. I've talked about this before. The beach is my place. I grew up in the Caribbean, and then I lived in the islands of Indonesia and Sumatra and Java and many vacations to Bali, and then lived in Singapore for many years, which is an island, and spent a lot of time in the islands of South Thailand as well. I love warm beach, ocean, tropical areas. And even though I don't live in a tropical area anymore, I'm really so privileged to be so close to the Santa Cruz beach with the cliffs and the cold ocean, unfortunately, but still those waves, the rhythm of the waves, they really do just regulate my nervous system and allow me to just sit there and think. And I get some of my best self-reflection, decisions that I make, and checking in with myself and finding my values again. And I've had one of those days this week, and hoping to have a few more moments during the holiday season just to take time to reflect on this year for myself, my leadership, the curveballs that came my way, and who I want to be going into the next year as I spend time with my family, being, by the fireplace, by our Christmas tree, just spending some times with our traditions, together. And listening to understand, as I've said here many, many times on the podcast, it's not really going out of style. As we see with this era of AI, and many people are using AI as a person who will, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT, or you have your own AI and that you've created an agent for various names out there. AI is available to quote unquote listen to understand all times of the day, whereas sometimes our human relationships aren't. But the more we become people who listen to understand, the better we're going to have not only decisions that we make. And once again, I do partner with AI for a lot of things, but I need the humans in my life too. And their perspective, although it's not available I need it so much. And I want to be the kind of person that also listens to understand in a way that I'm attuned to you, and I validate what feelings you're feeling. And I listen in such a way as to when you get to the point of wanting to overcome those obstacles, that you can brainstorm with me to help co-create whatever that looks like going forward. To me, that is leadership. Listening, co-creating. It's not about winning or one-upping each other. And this has never mattered more, because we live in a world where too many relationships have become very transactional. And I am leaning more and more into my deep friendships who truly listen, who truly empathize with each other, and increasingly wanting to be that person myself. In divided times and polarized times where we're pit against each other, whether it's men versus women in the workplace, the culture wars against women right now, the article that came out when I was in San Miguel, Mexico, and it was a New York Times opinion article that said women have ruined the workplace. Terrible. And now we've seen a McKinsey study that just came out. They've done one for the last 11 years on women in the workplace, and showing that, it's not that women aren't ambitious, but we haven't had the support in the workplace that we've had before. We've seen the gender parity gap go backwards for the last 2 years. Part of it is we're being so divided against each other, men versus women, parents versus children. In the US, it's, two political parties pit against each other. And we have whole countries being pit against each other. In these divided times, listening is leadership. We don't have to agree on everything. No one does. But listening to each other and understanding each other's perspective is the point of this podcast. We grow when we do that. We become better leaders when we do that. We see blind spots we didn't see before when we do that, because we carry bias. AI carries bias because we fed it bias. So it has all this bias around compensation for men versus women. So when I go to AI and I'm asking about compensation for things, I say, if I were a man, what would I ask for? And it gives me something different. We're seeing things such as people on LinkedIn are doing this research and showing that if a woman posts something and then she gets a male buddy, and there's a whole movement around this, to get a male buddy and post the very same things over 6 months, and you'll see the male get more views on LinkedIn because LinkedIn has had an algorithm that's showing women, it's pointing women toward women's posts, but it's not pointing men to them. So when you change your gender on LinkedIn, some of the research is showing that men will suddenly find the post. And so, yeah, we're just seeing who knows if it was even intentional. It's just that bias exists. It was fed into the system because the system is being fed by us and we are biased. And so all of these things, the way we check our assumptions, the way we move forward in ways where we help everyone rise, where we create systems where a mom in a family who's a breadwinner for her home, just like her husband is, when she gets treated certain ways in the workplace and faces discrimination or being ousted or laid off or, treated as though she needs to be a trad wife at home, that pits moms who stay home and moms who work against one another. It pits people in the workplace against those moms. And moms are in all of our lives. We were brought into this world because of moms, and we were all babies once. And so when we hurt one particular part of our society, one segment, one demographic, it affects all of us. And so that's why listening to understand has never mattered more. We need to be proactive in the year to come. And that's something I'm more committed to than ever, is listening to the people I bring on the podcast, listening to you, listening to the people in my life and my community and my workplace and the nonprofits where I sit on boards and I'm volunteering in my community. I want to be the person in my family and in my relationships with my loved ones that shows up with a listening ear. And in this era, it takes so much courage to hold space for the differences that we have. But what happens is that when we see each other truly as human, we allow ourselves to be human too. And we allow ourselves to make mistakes and learn from those and say, here's what I want to do differently next time. And it allows people to have that safety to do the same. I think back, as I said, on my Venezuela Christmas traditions and the warmth, the music, the food, the community, the togetherness, the late nights where El Niño Jesus would bring gifts and put it on the children's shoes, and aguinaldos, these songs that we sing that are just so cherished for me, especially at a time where my heart is breaking, as it has for many years, for this country that I love so much. It's just not knowing what's about to happen, more suffering. And how Venezuelans have come to the United States to seek asylum. Many have been on a TPS program, which has been canceled, and are being treated horribly with ICE raids here and snatched off the street. Mothers snatched from their nursing babies. And we saw earlier this year, the president sent Venezuelans who he had no evidence and falsely accused them of being gang members of El Tren de Aragua. And Aragua is the state that was right next to mine in Carabobo State, where I grew up. So I had friends, classmates who lived in Aragua, in Maracay, in the city, and came to my school. So very close by. And this Tren de Aragua gang is a real gang, but is it something these people were a part of that he sent to El Salvador, one of the worst prisons in the world, and they suffered horrible human rights abuses? The things that are happening to Venezuelans in Venezuela and in this country as well they cause me so much rage, because this is a country that raised me. These are people that raised me. Some of the kindest, most wonderful leaders and people that I know, very generous. And every society, including this one I'm sitting in now, has people that are up to no good. But the majority of the people in Venezuela that I know, are incredible people that deserve love and care and respect and have so much love and laughter and joy to share. They taught me to dance. They taught me to sing songs in Spanish that are so dear to my heart. They taught me how to give and how to love and how to be a neighbor and a friend and a family member. And so at this time of year, I often think of Venezuela around the holiday time. And I'm really carrying you, anyone who's listening there or who is a Venezuelan who's part of the diaspora abroad. I just want to send you my warmest thoughts and love and a big hug this season and this time of year, because I don't know what's around the corner, but I do know that my hope is that we see Venezuela restored to the place that it it longs to be, and that many around the world who have left Venezuela are still waiting in hope and anticipation that something will burst forth in a very good way. I'm hoping for peace there this year, and not violence, but a place where peace can reign. And isn't it so wonderful that we got to celebrate peace in the form of Maria Corina Machado receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, as imperfectly as it went, not getting there on time and having her kids do these beautiful speeches and seeing the crowds in Oslo waiting for her and not knowing how it's going to go forward, but just being able to celebrate the work of this incredible woman who has tirelessly fought for peace in this country that she and so many of us love. As we think about that, there's so much hope there and an inspiration of her courage, her moral leadership in the time of adversity. And it makes me reflect on so many of you this year who have shown me those very things and invited my own voice to speak in places. I've been so honored to speak in many conferences this year on several panels. I was in San Diego in September speaking at a talent management conference and at 2 different panels, and met a lot of incredible people there, made some great friends that I've stayed connected with. I recently, on a few days ago, spoke at the Women XAI panel here in San Jose with my friend Jenny K. Pollock. Shout out to you if you're listening, a fellow podcast host as well. And I'm also speaking in a few days for moderating another panel with Women XAI at Snowflake, and closing out the year with Women XAI to review this year and the things we've all learned. I co-led a retreat in San Miguel de Allende in Mexico recently in November with some incredible women leaders, and was inspired getting to know many of you, and many of you have become friends as well, and got to know some expats there and get into your home. So if any of you are listening that were on that trip, hello. It was such a great time, and I'm so grateful for our friendship. Got to meet women this year across borders, across industries, across cultures as I've traveled to different places. A highlight was going in the spring to Denmark with one of my sons, visiting the Lego house, but also getting to really embrace the hygge culture of coziness around these cold times of year, sitting in a window box, which is part of the hygge culture, and letting the light come in as you get cozy next to the window. Having these very egalitarian but simple, well-prepared meals where you have deep conversations with people, with having warm coffee and candles that light the room, and cozy blankets and fireplaces and beautiful light fixtures. And all of that leads to them being one of the happiest countries in the world. And I experienced it myself because I was freezing there. But I could feel the happiness and feel the warmth of Denmark. And it was an incredible experience that I still carry with me, especially as we're entering a winter season here in Northern California. But it reminds me that I think part of that happiness is that the Danish have a corner of is the reminder that how we treat each other is priceless, and how our society comes together and cares for each other, that is part of it. They teach empathy to the elementary school students in their schools. And I think that's in being empathetic and listening to one another is part of it. You know, Jacinda Ardern, who's one of the women that I really admire ever since when I was in Singapore, she got elected as Prime Minister of New Zealand and led there through several years, including during the COVID pandemic. She had a book she released this year called A Different Kind of Power. And you know, I love the word different. You're on a world of difference. And she did this book tour, and there's also a documentary about her called Prime Minister. And one of the things I love about her is how she had such empathetic leadership and really wanted people's voices to be something that she listened to deeply, and that her decisions as she carried a heavy weight of knowing the decisions that she made were going to affect the lives of many people. And, you know, it can't be a leader, especially not a woman leader, without facing a lot of criticism. But one of the things that she kept was one of her quotes that I love, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but it's something like, I refuse to believe that you can't be both kind and strong. And I think there is a strength to her kindness. And it's a reminder to us in a world that has told us we have to choose between those two things. And I also don't believe that we have to, that kindness is its own strength, and leaders who don't show kindness aren't showing strength at all. So I'm no longer interested in transactional relationships, performative values that aren't real, that are just one way in front of the curtain and completely different behind it. I'm not interested in leadership without humanity. And I'm certainly not interested in words without action. These are some of my takeaways from this year, from my experiences as a leader, interacting with other leaders in different spaces. And I'm coming to the end of this year, making decisions around the places I want to put my time and effort going forward in the next year. Where are the places where I see light and I want to keep investing in those? Where are the places where I'm seeing some darkness creep in and just taking some time to step away? And I've already made a big exit this year and looking for selectively some places to put my time and effort next in the work that I do so I can be proud of it, values aligned, and the kind of leader I want to be. So what am I committed to in the next year? I'm committed to authenticity. I'm committed to kindness. I'm committed to respect, mutual support shown through action, not just language. Building a human-centered workplace and workplaces in this AI-driven era, and leadership that protects dignity, protects voice, protects agency, treats people with the respect and dignity that we all deserve. So I take those lessons from Denmark, that simplicity, that hygge. We're traveling to Denmark and learning from the hygge culture, this cozy, simple, egalitarian way of finding happiness, and the power of slowing down, presence over productivity, connection over consumption. These are some of the lessons that I loved reading about Denmark and the hygge culture, and then experiencing firsthand when I was there in the spring, that I'm taking with me into this winter and into this next year. So my gentle invitation for you for the season ahead is to really lean into those deep conversations over shared meals that you'll have with friends, family, loved ones, those fireside chats under cozy blankets and warm coffee. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, maybe it's beach time at the beach house in Sydney, but time to reflect, time to be honest in your assessments about how this year has gone and who you want to be in the next year, what you're carrying forward and what you're releasing. These are things that matter. What are you saying hello to? What are you saying goodbye to? So in this closing reflection, as we head into the end of this year and celebrate these holidays, I think about my own childhood memories. And my mom recently reminded me that I was a young child, when we moved from Costa Rica to Venezuela, and we moved around Christmas time, and we were moving into a new house, and we didn't have all the furniture yet. If you work in global mobility, I have so many stories of my own personal experience of moving and waiting for crates and shipments to show up, living in temporary housing, waiting for the place you're supposed to be living in long-term to open up, getting into new international schools, all of these as a child and as an expat myself in multiple countries. Also disasters that happen, evacuations, I've been through it all. So being at a global mobility conference recently in San Francisco that I was invited into, I was kind of surprised because many people worked in global mobility, but they'd never had the personal lived experience. So a lot of the things that they worked through, I had my own personal story. I still even have a painting from Venezuela that I had painted by a painter in a place I used to go growing up near the coast. And when I was living in Singapore, it got sent to a family that lives in the UK. They switched up one of our pieces of our shipment and switched them somehow. And so I've never been able to get that back. I've tried for many years, even though the woman has it in her storage somewhere. So even though I've made several trips to the UK in the last couple of years, she still can't find it in her storage. So it's one of those global mobility expat kind of nightmare situations. But all that to say, things aren't what I carry with me, although I'd love to have those paintings again, because it's a place I can't go back to because of the political situation in Venezuela right now. But money can buy a lot of gifts around the tree, but it can't buy time that has already passed. Time that's passed, it can't be wrapped up and put under the tree. And so that's something I'm thinking through around this time of year as my loved ones, including me, get 1 year older and time is passing. How we spend our time, who we're becoming, it matters. It matters so much more than a lot of what the commercials would tell us about this time of year about what to buy. So, I think about us in this community, and I think of a blessing for us, for rest, for reflection, and for renewed courage. I'm so grateful for walking this journey together with you as we've listened to many guests on this journey this year. And it's a reminder to me that our differences are not the problem. In fact, they're the way forward. And I agree with Jacinda Ardern. There's a different kind of power that's needed, one that's kind, one that leads with integrity, that leads with listening, that leads with not making plans so grandiose that you burn out your staff and blame them when things go wrong, but that you own your mistakes and you co-create and you treat others with humanity and treat yourself in the same way. Human-centered approaches are the way forward in this era of AI. And as I look forward to starting some new things next year, such as doing more consulting on the side, as I also look still selectively for the next full-time role I'm going to step into and figure out where I want to spend my time volunteering in nonprofits and on boards. I myself too am committed to more human-centered approaches going forward as we see the way we work in the world make all kinds of changes coming our way very rapidly and very soon. I'd love to know what you're committed to going forward, what you've learned from this year, and how you are reflecting during this cozy, warm blanket, cozy hot chocolate fireplace season. Or once again, if you're in maybe Argentina, maybe it's at the beach, but whatever you're doing during this time of holiday season to take some time to reflect, I'd love to hear about it. Tag me on social media or send me a DM somewhere. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn these days, and I would love to hear from you and hear what you're reflecting about as we co-create the future, the world of work, and the ways we are in all of our communities in the way that we want to see it show up for ourselves and for others. As you pause and take time with your family this year, and enjoy, just relish these moments, because once again, money can't buy time that has already passed. And you showing up as yourself authentically with your loved ones, family, and friends, it makes a world of difference. Happy holidays. Has life ever thrown you a curveball? I've been thrown 1, 2, maybe 3. And okay, if we're being honest, a few more in life. And sometimes you just need a professional to talk with it about. And friends help and family helps, but having a professional therapist has been a game changer for me because of the skills they bring into those conversations. And I want you to have access to that too. So BetterHelp have been willing to give you 10% off your first month if you sign up today with www.betterhelp.com/difference. You deserve to have somebody walking through this with you. You deserve all the healing. And a professional is the kind of person that will not only listen, but they will give you tools to walk through this journey so that you are not alone. www.betterhelp.com/difference to get 10% off your first month today. Are you on Substack? Because I am, and I'd love to connect with you there. I process things there over Saturdays and Sundays, days off, sometimes weeknights as I'm researching and reading other articles, and it inspires me to write things where I'm going deeper into the behind the scenes of what some of the episodes on A World of Difference are all about. I'd love to connect with you there. So if you are on Substack, find me. You can go to loriadamsbrown.substack.com as a free, or I would prefer a paid subscriber, because then you get access to more of the in-depth things that are exclusively for my paid subscribers. I keep my prices as low as they can be on Substack, as low as they allow. But I do believe in being paid for my work, and I believe you should be paid for yours too. So join me there and let's make a difference together. Okay, difference makers, I know you, and I know when you hear something you really enjoyed and you learned from it, you want to share it. I am like that too, which is why I love to promote guests on this podcast for you to get to hear them yourself. Sometimes they write books, sometimes they write on Substack, sometimes they podcast, sometimes their voice is just every day in the workplace where they live and impact their communities in a variety of ways with all the hats that they wear. So if you enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you did, please share it with a friend, a parent, a neighbor, somebody you went to boarding school with back in the day, somebody at work, your boss, people on your team, because this is a message they needed to hear. And it have impacted you. Please give us a 5-star rating and give us a review. It really helps our reach for more people like you to find us, the difference makers, the listeners, the leaders, the people in your communities that are making the world a better place. I appreciate you so much.